We have liftoff, and Morocco were playing the Comoros in the opening game of 2025 African Nations Cup. And as we expected, it was always going to be a Morocco win. They are hosts. And I think personally, they are probably favorites to lift the trophy. They've had a very successful run at qualifying for the next World Cup next year, taking place in America. So I did think they were probably going to be favorites to win this group they are in as well, which has Mali, Zambia, and the Comoros. So they played the Comoros and they beat them 2-0. In the first half, it felt like Morocco were just a bit too fast, too on the ball for the Comoros. Early in the first half, the Comoros concede a penalty. I didn't think for an African Nations tournament it was actually a penalty, but I think there were so many little things. The referee probably was a bit tired and a bit off the pace as well sometimes. But anyway, they get the penalty. It wasn't a blatant no. There was a challenge in there, very soft. But in the Premier League, you're going to get that every day of the week. In the African Nations tournament, though, not so much. So they got this penalty, and the keeper for the Comoros actually is probably the only one who spared their blushes today. It could have been worse. He had some incredible saves throughout the game. There was a point in the second half where he had a double save, which was pretty incredible. And at that point, I think they were only losing 1-0. So literally, it was one of those things for them. The referee at sometimes, I think he looked a bit overwhelmed only because there were so many funny challenges that were coming in aggressive. And if he was too card happy, he probably would have had very few players left on the pitch. But he tried to control the game. He tried to tone it down a little bit, and it just wasn't going to happen. But at points in the first half, especially, the Comoros looked like an amateur side. Sometimes they were missing shots, air kicks everywhere, and, very off the pace. But there were also opportunities you could see in the second half where they managed to sort of when they stopped the low block, which they sort of tried to execute in the first half. They were coming out more. They had a few shots on target. They were going in behind, cutting through the midfield of the Morocco team. And they looked successful, but the keeper for Morocco was very, very good. Let's see. In the second half, of course, because that low block that the Comoros executed in the first half was quite successful. So Morocco use their wings to try and get in behind that low block. They were using their wings, especially the left wing, and they had some success there. They created lots of chances there. But the saving grace, of course, for the Comoros was their keeper, who seemed to be doing pretty well for most of the game, except for the 2 goals. Brahim Diaz plays for Real Madrid, opened the scoring, a cutback. He placed it in, past the keeper really nicely. It looked really good, and it was good to see at least a goal go in. And, that was it. Then, of course, we had Kaabi with a spectacular bicycle kick to make it 2-0. But I really have to commend the keeper for the Comoros for doing a great job for keeping some of those goals to keeping the scoreline as narrow as it was, because Morocco, without that keeper, probably would have had about 4-5 goals today. He had a great double save, which I really enjoyed. But like the way also the Comoros played against Morocco, they were really trying to get a draw. And the way, to execute a low block throughout, you need to be fit as heck. You need to be fit. You need to be, the fitness levels need to be top notch. You can't just go at it halfway and then start thinking of other things to do in the second half the way they went against it. It was always going to be very difficult for them to maintain it, because also once Morocco managed to get in through to their sides after they sort of ran out of ideas on how to block the creativity for Morocco, you could see the Comoros now started coming out more. Morocco also opened up a bit more. They had more opportunities, the Comoros, which they did not take advantage of. Morocco keeper was pretty decent. But the other thing, so anyway, it ended up being 2-0. they've got 3 points. Zambia are playing Mali tomorrow. The only thing that was pretty disappointing at first, I thought maybe my eyes were deceiving me. The attendance, those seats, there were quite a lot of empty seats for an opening match for the hosts. I don't think we're going to have very good attendance at this African Nations Cup. First of all, the timing is terrible. It's Christmas already. I'm at a house party right now. So that's why I'm looking like this a bit, couldn't find my lip gloss. But no one knew there was African Nations today. I was the only one paying attention to it. No one else apart from 1 or 2 people were like, oh, what's going on? Or what's blah, blah, blah. But nobody was really like committed to watching it because they are in this Christmas spirit. They want to do other things with their families. So the timing is atrocious, but the attendance in Morocco is terrible. Also, the fans for Morocco are atrocious. Those lasers, all you can see are those green, laser lights on players' faces every time there's a set piece and things like that, which I think is really, really wrong. This happened again when the women were doing the African Nations Cup in Morocco again. They can't control their fans, and the fans do not seem to have that attitude, no sportsmanship. They're really, really they don't care. And yeah, it's a huge shame that their facilities are great, but their fans probably, we are going to suffer through some bad behavior because they don't seem to understand that doing what they're doing it really looks bad. And there were times where the cameras were panning away when they were showing the laser beams, probably trying to spare the blushes of the Moroccan. They're very sensitive. We also saw how they behaved when Nigeria beat them at the final of the Women's African Nations Cup. But you can't hide that because it was so frequent. Every time Comoros were in a good position, they would have laser beams flashing in their eyes, on their faces. And yeah, it's a bit disgraceful. That is quite disappointing. So yeah. But yeah, let me know what you think, you guys. Did you enjoy the first game? Did you watch it? What are you looking forward to most? Tomorrow afternoon, I am going to be keeping my eye out for the Zambia versus Mali game. That is going to be big for me. And I'm hoping that the Zambia national team they might have left the fashion sense at home, but they have brought their footballing boots and their absolute greatest skills ready to take Mali on for the game on Monday afternoon. Let me know what you think, you guys. So that was our opening game, which ended 2-0 to Morocco, the hosts. So yeah, thank you so much. And I'll be talking to you guys very soon. Bye-bye.